Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of CR6, the podcast covering the Collegiate Rainbow Six League, as well as mostly Pro League in North America, with some hints of EU, LTAM, and SEA. So here we go. It's me, Warlock Recall, the host, and my co-host, Syntax GG. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Did you happen to catch the first match of relegation before your evening kind of turned upside down?
Yes, I did. Um, the first match was Obey versus Sonics, correct?
Yeah, I was right.
Um, Now this was a pretty big match. Now everybody kind of expected the Sonics. Um, this was a weird match, right? So this everybody expected the Sonics to get relegated, but when they saw who was playing them, Obey Alliance, everyone's like, okay, they've got one Challenger League veteran, who is Abunai.Obey. Um, so Abunai, sorry, he's got Challenger League experience, but it wasn't very good Challenger League experience. The last time he was in Challenger League, he was actually his team was, the very bottom of the pit Challenger League, and they kind of dropped out. So everyone's kind of like, I don't know how this is gonna go because both teams are actually kind of bad. So, um, it was kind of a toss up, but it actually turns out Obey kind of put the hurt on Sonics. They won, I believe they won map one. And so I don't think Sonics won a map, did they?
No, they didn't. They got
Yeah.
2-0'd. Here, let me bring up the page real quick.
So the first pick was Obey's pick on Coastline. Um, and Obey actually beat them on Coastline, and then they went to Consulate, which was the Sonics pick, and um,
I mean,
Super actually tweeted out that like, oh, like this is our map, like we've got some strats for this map and all this jazz, and then they get to the map and then they get 7-2'd. So I don't know what happened to
7-1.
that. Or 7-1. Was it 7? It was 7-2 on Coastline, and then
Eight.
seven. No, no, no.
It
It was 8-7 on Coastline. I'm sorry, 8-7 Coastline, and then 7-1 on Consulate. They got absolutely stomped on their own map pick, which kind of sucks,
yeah,
but
and I
it
mean,
happened.
like the first pick on Coastline. Coastline is Obey's map, and like it was a struggle back and forth. Like if pulling up the round play, like no one won more than 2 rounds back to back the entire time. There wasn't like this sweep and then epic comeback kind of thing. It was just back and forth every side and every round. It was ridiculous and it was so close and so many of those rounds could have gone either way. And it wasn't I mean, Obey gave themselves the advantage in the OT rounds just by winning the first one, but the fact that Sonics didn't break that entire time and they won and they just kept battling back, that was really impressive. And I was hoping that that was more of that pro league stamina showing. And I was thinking that in that second map, we were going to see more of that stamina, more of that consideration of like how you need to concentrate and just double down on how you're playing. But everything just seemed to go wrong for them. I mean, this is utter devastation when you're looking at 7-1
Mm-hmm.
on
It
your
was,
opponent's map.
yeah, and it was a huge upset for the Sonics, but I'm not gonna lie when I say I'm not surprised that I didn't see this coming. So that was quite the match. I think the real upset was that map. It wasn't the whole match itself. It was more of that map. The Sonics had worked really hard on that map, um, but then Obey came in and kind of just swept it under their feet. So
And it was kind of my thought is that like Coastline was considered Obey's map. And it's like that's how it made it through pick and ban. It's not a super popular map and it's pretty like it's a 50-50 map from what I've gathered and how I've experienced that map. It's not like attacker heavy or defender heavy. It just is. And
hmm
for Obey to struggle with that, or kind I guess kind of live up to the map's identity, like that was still kind of shaky. It is like this is your map, and if you lose it, like then that's just putting your opponent on such stronger ground, and winning it doesn't really get you much because you're still going to your opponent's map. Like it's still a difficult position to be in, but for them to duke it out, pull out the win, and somehow manage to break Sonic's morale, because that's the only thing I can attribute a 7-1 loss to, is like you just tilted after that first map.
Yeah, especially in relegations, there's a lot on the line in relegations, and I no doubt um, that Pro League team was already sweating the match before it even started. On the other hand, the Challenger Leagues come in hungry. They come in motivated. They can, they've essentially got nothing to lose with this match. If they lose, then that's that. They stay in Challenger League. But if they win, they take that Pro League spot. The only thing that changes is if they win. Um, and with the pro, the Pro League team being relegated, they risk a lot with that match. Like they have to win, and it's a lot of pressure. There's a lot on their shoulders, and then losing map one, which is just icing on the cake, essentially mentally, and it really hurt them. And they played really sloppy on Cafe, and they froze up in key situations. What I noticed when they were playing, and it really hurt.
You think this was a case of the Sonics coming in playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win?
That's a good question. Actually, I think this was a lack of preparation. Um, I think they were one.
Of
I
course
think
you follow
one, they
me.
were playing not
They
to
all
lose,
do.
and two, it was a lack of preparation because a lot of teams, a lot of pro league teams, when they go into relegations, they tend to. I mean, obviously they take it seriously because there's a lot on the line, but they tend to underestimate the teams because with this Challenger League season, a lot of people were under the impression that the NACL scene was absolute trash. That's just the word on the street. That's just word of mouth. Like Challenger League this season for NA has just been garbage. All that jazz. And so I think these pro league teams kind of took that little bit too seriously or too literally. And when they went into these matches, they didn't really give them the recognition that they probably deserve, and they got beat. And the same, I think that the same thing happened to Rogue, but also, um, with that Rogue match, Two Faced is they're a nasty team. Uh, they've I that's just the one word that I would give to describe Two Face is they're nasty. So
Are they hardcore fraggers? Like, do they frag out regularly, or is it just that they pull out some weird meta stuff or not meta?
two, one Two Faced, they're really good off the bat, but also Two Faced, they were probably the most hungry team in the entire North American Rainbow Six scene, Pro League and Challenger League, because even Space Station tweeted this out. They were like, every time we wanted to scrim 5+ maps, Two Face was always down.
I saw that Lycan tweeted that out, and that when you get
Yes.
Lycan to be like recognizing you for your effort, damn, you know you're doing something right.
Yes. Two Face, they were constantly scrimming multiple maps back to back all the time. Um, and I'm not too sure how often these other teams were scrimming, so I can't really speak on their behalf. But as far as I know, the Two Face was they wanted it. They wanted it bad, and it showed.
I want to back up to the Obey Sonics match real quick, and it's just making that one point how you go into your opponent's map and then you can just come in and lose a single round and just be like, okay, we turned it around and it's just round after round after round. What is that like? I mean, I haven't done much ranked play or any really coordinated play, but from your perspective, having been on a team, a very good team, what is that like when you have that round after round just sinking feeling coming in at you?
That's exactly what it is. It's just a sinking feeling. Um, it hurts you mentally. It makes you frustrated. Um, it makes you anxious. It makes your judgment highly impaired because of that. Um, and you tend to make really dumb decisions because you get so frustrated. Um, in a lot of my and like when I give people advice, when people come to me like, oh, how is comp? Like what is some advice you'd give our team? Like going into these, going into the competitive scene, and I tell these people the number one key factor into going into competitive is to always keep a positive no matter what situation you're in, you have to keep that positive mental attitude because the moment you lose that, you lose the game. Plain and simple. The moment that everybody starts fighting each other on the team is the moment you lose. I don't care if you're I don't care if you're mid match. If you're mid match and you start fighting each other, you've lost. If you guys don't cut it out and pick it up as a team and get and bring that moral back up, you've lost. Plain and simple.
I think when we look at the numbers on that match, you can just see where the standouts are. I mean, Siege.gg does a great job at highlighting the numbers that mattered the most, but when you look at Callout, who was just the series MVP hands down each time, his numbers are just absurd when you compare it to anyone else on the team.
Who
And the
was it?
fact, Callout,
Call out. Okay, okay. Yeah, I forgot his name was actually Call Out.
but I mean, even then, everyone kind of pulled their weight. You look at Fozo or Fazo, I don't even know how you pronounce it, getting the one plant and then being -4. Like -4, no big deal in the grand scheme of things. He's the only player on Alliance that went under. And but when you look at Sonics, four of them, three of them went under. Neptune's only broke even, and Neptune's was that hired gun. Like he was calling out and coming out with big rounds, but like he just wasn't consistently there. I think a lot of their strategies got just pulled apart slowly yet surely, and they just never were able to recover. They never seemed to have an answer back, and of course these stats are both of the maps together, so you can't really tell how one performed on Coastline
Each
versus
map.
Cafe. So
Yep.
it's a little difficult, but like overall, when you look at 23 rounds played, 17 deaths and 17 kills, like okay, you at least fragged, but then got refragged, or you baited someone else to fragging, to being out of position, and then you were able to get some advantage on the round. But like it's almost kind of like you were just there. You didn't drag your team down, but you didn't elevate your team either. When you look at the three other players who literally just took their team down, that's a rough place to be. There was no way Slevin was going to come back and carry everyone.
Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are. No one player can really um, bring your team back. I mean, yeah, you can drop a lot of kills, but it doesn't mean you're gonna win the round. And unless the team picks it up, and something clicks within the team, then it's one person's not gonna be able to bring it back for the whole team.
And again, kind of like a situation I mentioned last week, when we look at the 1 versus X stat, we don't know how many opportunities there were to win that. And so when you look at Goddess, whose numbers were not great, but then she had the one versus X as well as two plants, like she was playing a role, and it wasn't the frag role, it was probably support, but like she was able to find success in the objective or in those last moments of a round. So maybe the -8 going 9 and 17 isn't as reflective of her value, but then we still have the representative cost value of less than 0.5. And so you have two members on their team who are under 0.5. And I can't imagine when you have numbers that low of regular return on round that you're going to have much success.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's just an off night for them. I mean, clearly they rose through Challenger, won their way in, and then had hot spots of success and looking better during the Pro League. But I think this is just ultimately the summary of Sonics. They weren't able to really grow, they were able to grow in their time in Pro League, but I think the rest of Pro League and the rest of Challenger League just grew more.
Yeah. Honestly, if I were to put the lack of performance on Sonic's end into like one thing, it would be their lack of coach. The entire season they didn't have it. They didn't have a coach.
Yeah,
Now,
that would do it.
we talked. I talked about this in a past podcast episode, but throughout the whole season, Super thought he was going to be able to play and coach, quotes, at the same time. But I don't think there was much coaching going on. He thought, his IGLing was going to be enough, and it wasn't. And then towards the end, when they knew that they were about to face relegations, he tweeted out, "Hey, we're looking for a coach." It's like, okay, dude, like it's too late now.
Yeah, that's too late to give up the ghost.
It's too late. You've played yourself. I would start looking for a coach for next season so you guys can get back into Pro League. Um, because the way you're doing things now, it's just not working at all, and now you know it.
I mean, that reminds me of the US Nationals match last week when the team decided not to prepare at all, not to come in with strats. They know the game. I forget which team it was exactly, but one of the teams came in without a plan against Dark Zero, and that's not going to work. Waiting until you are destined for relegation to get a coach to change things up, to admit that you're not enough as an in-game leader and a coach to handle both of those roles, and wait until the last minute when all the consequences are staring you in the face. Man,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's an experience to learn from. I hope that it's recognized as just one of those things that you can't do.
Yeah, you can't. Um, and honestly, I think the owner of the Sonics should have noticed this trend and hired, been like, okay, like we're gonna get a coach, guys, because obviously like what we're doing isn't working. But the thing is, I'm not trying to, back these. I don't know if you guys have seen on Twitter, people make fun of Super from because it's like his dad or his uncle owns the Sonics, right? So, people are like, if it's up to me, like Super would have been dropped a long time ago. Um, but the reason Super isn't getting dropped, it's because his dad or uncle owns the organization. So, um, like it's like, dude, like I understand that your son or your nephew, is important to you, but like this is your business, man. Uh if you care about your business and you want to make a profit, like you need to start thinking in business terms and not um in family terms, you know. I don't know what the term is, like or uh nepotism or something like that.
I don't know. I'm not
Like
that smart to to
where you like you like favor your family or something like
yeah.
that. I forget what it is, but
I mean, it's got
um
to stay in the family, right? Like,
yeah, I don't know, but
man, that's definitely a mess to have to navigate through and deal with. But it's like you said, and now anyone who's looking at that brand has to go, are they really willing to do what it takes to win, or is it just fun and games for them? Is this the reputation that Sonics wants to go in to? Is that they're not willing to make the call because it betrays family? Like, I get it. Family's important to a lot of people, and it's a very emotional thing, and it's very complicated, but business is business, and if you're not going to run it like a business needs to be run and find success and continuity, then stop trying.
yeah.
Support your family member and let them grow as they need to, but you can't, in this case, I don't think you can have both.
Yeah, and like people are like, like why would they drop him? They're like he's not a bad player. It's like, well, it's not about the fact that he's a bad player. I mean, he's not the best player, but he's not a bad player. The reason that like he should have been dropped from the team is because of how many bad decisions he's made for the organization. Um, he has, as him being a self-proclaimed coach, you know, I don't think he's been doing his job as a coach. Um, he hasn't sucked up his pride and been like, okay, we need a coach. That decision, saying we don't need one. Yeah, right. So, it would be the amount of bad, essentially business decisions that he's made for the organization. It would be the reason that I would fire him. So,
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And when you look at just having a catastrophic season that puts you into relegation so handedly with no hope of escaping it, and then to go in and lose as you did, there needs to be some serious conversations about who the IGL is and who the coach is and whether or not they're going to pursue the same format. People I could imagine this roster being utterly destroyed and rebuilt. I don't know who you would build it around, but it's it's clear that maybe someone wasn't in it as much as they needed to be.
mhm,
And there
yeah,
might have even been more than one. Like if Super's not willing to kind of put his reputation and his roles aside and into perspective, it's going to be really hard for anyone else to kind of follow that example and just admit that this isn't what they want to be doing anymore halfway through the season,
yeah,
and then
um,
finding an appropriate replacement while there's time to
mhm,
course correct.
yeah, exactly. Um, Also, I just realized the decision for them to uh, drop their two best players in their team midseason and then pick up Slevin and Gomfy. Um, now I'm not saying Slevin and Gomfy are bad players. They're actually really good players. But the fact that you just decided to uh, switch out players of like the same play style midseason kind of blows my mind. Like if they perform the same way, like why would you switch out people who already know the ins and outs of the team and how they play for new people mid-season, you know? Um, if you're gonna drop players mid-season, you want to make improvements in that change, right? So you would think that you would drop your two worst players for two better players, you know.
Yeah,
Now, if you added those two better players on top of their two best players already, that would have been an excellent change. But they didn't,
yeah,
because
and I
of
mean
reasons you already know.
we can look at we can look at this two ways. We can give the benefit of the doubt and just say that the two players who were dropped were having an overall negative impact on the team, or there was actual mutual conversations about splitting and hope that things were handled rationally and with meaning behind it, but the picture being painted of Super being in a couple roles that he may not be able to handle both at the same time, and questionable results through and through, it starts degrading that reputation like I was talking about just a minute ago. It's like you're
Yeah.
starting to degrade what it means to be part of the Sonics and where those decisions are going to come from. Is it because you're actually evaluating the performance? Is it because they were toxic? Is it because you were toxic and they wanted to be somewhere else? Like that's really difficult to break down unless we were in the room. But seeing the history of changes and talking about it, it doesn't paint exactly a really optimistic view of their future.
Yeah, with the first mess up, you can kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. But when you start seeing a pattern, it starts to tell a whole different story, like you're saying. Um, and it just at this point, he's lost all his credibility, and I don't know where the Sonics are going to continue after this. Will they make it into Pro League, back into Pro League next season? I don't know. Unless they make some serious changes. Let's say they stay the same way they are right now. They're not making it back into Pro League next season.
No, I don't think they would.
Not at all.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see how that roster breaks down, reforms, and what their goals really are, and how they're going to accomplish that. Like, if we can see a coach come into the scene, if we can see maybe an analyst being added to the roster and helping them prep with data and prep on things that might have just been that they might have been able to compensate for within the execution of plans as opposed to just being straight fraggers and just being super solid at the game, being more super solid at being a team.
Yeah, that is. I would agree with that.
All right, let's jump over to Rogue versus Two Faced. I mean, this was definitely a stronger set, but it's weird how it ended up being a bit of a mirror. Rogue winning match one, 7-2, handedly, like no concerns there. But then for it to be so close on Consulate for Two Faced and for them to pull that out and then just basically do what Obey Alliance did to Sonics on Coastline, like 7-2 for the final match. It's it's bizarre to see the Pro League team not having the same kind of fortitude as the Challenger League team, but as you said, Two Faced was willing to go the distance with a lot of top tier teams just in
Yeah.
Scrim.
Yeah, this match was by far the biggest upset match that I think I've ever seen. And the reason behind that is that since year one, season one Pro League, Rogue has never lost their Pro League spot. That slot has always been taken by Rogue.
Yeah,
Since the beginning of Rainbow Six Pro League, Rogue has been there. Rogue has never not been in Pro League. So this Rogue being relegated was insanely huge. And a lot of people are just they just don't know what to do. like like what? Like I don't know like what they were doing when they went into this match. Like maybe Two Face was just legitimately better and they deserved to win. Or maybe Rogue went in thinking that they weren't going to lose their Pro League spot and they didn't take them as seriously as they should have. I mean, yes, they took the match seriously. This is a relegation match, but like I said earlier, they tend to underestimate these teams. Um, so there may have been a degree of underestimation um, against Two Faced. So I I don't know. Maybe it was a little bit of both. Maybe Two Face was, just better, and Rogue underestimated them. So
what's I mean, what I think it comes down to in this case is that Two Face had the stamina. they had the conditioning to go that long because having gone up against um, all of their scrim partners and for as long as they had, and just like really obviously taking advantage of every one of those matches. When you look at the map vetoes and picks, when it comes down to Coastline being the decider, both teams were confident on that map. Both teams were okay going to Coastline. But for Two Face to pull out a 7-2, that is just incredible considering both teams are kind of mutually saying this map is okay. Because when Rogue bans out Villa and Cafe and they chose to go to Bank, and Bank is the one map that they won 7-2. But then Two Face's map, Consulate, is 7-5. It's much closer. You would expect to see that Coastline is more of that, just like, okay, we know what we need to do, but here it is being the ultimate decider, and there was just no, there was just nothing there to show for it. Like the effort just seemed to flag really early on for Two Face to win on Assault back to back the last 3 rounds of the game. I don't know if there was a morale break in round 7 with how Two Faced won the kitchen service round, but for it to come off of a Two Faced win, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at this wrong. Um, for Two Face to hold a defense into round 6 and then switch to attack and then just stomp all over 3 rounds back to back when I don't think there was another 3 round execution except for in Rogue's map. Like for them to pull that off on Coastline, just they clearly trained on that map, probably more in preparation than Rogue did.
Yeah. Um, Two-Faced, I I don't know. Like I know that they prepared their ass off for this match, but also they are they are just really good as a team. They play really well together, and I've noticed that it looked like they were all one player. Um, with how well coordinated they were. Um, and crazy. He was he used to be in Pro League. And I forgot what team he was on, but he is a Pro League veteran. And then he finally made his way back into Challenger League, and he was um, part of this team called Leftovers, which with what a bunch of with a bunch of old Pro League uh, dropouts essentially, and they kind of got together. But then they got poached by other teams, like Jarvis was on Leftovers, then Jarvis got poached by TSM, and then other players got poached by their other teams. So they kind of disbanded, and then Crazy went to Two Faced. And so they actually just made they just made it into into Challenger League. Um, and then also they barely scraped by into the Challenger League playoffs.
Wasn't it
By
round
literally
differential?
yeah, by like a couple rounds. Um, like when I say barely scraped by, I mean like by the skin of their teeth, scraped by. Um, and then they come in and just absolutely stomp Rogue. Like, um, I don't know if that is a sign that our pro league is just really bad this year, or our challenger league is just really good this year. But people are saying that challenger league has been really bad this year, so I don't understand um, any of it. I am so confused. I'm actually gonna say it's both. I think that um, a lot of Challenger League was not the greatest, but those two teams that made it into the relegation matches were the good teams. Um, and the thing is with Challenger League, so Challenger League it works a lot differently than Pro League. So the teams in Pro League, they play a lot more tactically. Challenger League, the meta in Challenger League is to play hyper aggressive. And honestly, I see Two Face coming in as another 92 Dream Team. Um, it's how it works every time. These Challenger League teams that are just hyper aggressive, they make it to the top of Challenger League. They come in and then they just stomp the relegations because the Pro League teams have no information on these Challenger League teams, and these Challenger League and the Pro League guys are used to playing other teams that play smart and tactfully tactically. Um,
But you would have
but
thought Sonics would have been prepared for that then.
you would think so. You would think so, but that's a whole other story. I don't think Sonic's prepared for much at all. Um, but anyways, because Two Face, came in, it was just they were just hyper aggressive against Rogue, and Rogue was like, like what? Like we're not. What is going on? Like we're used to playing people that are like smart and not just all aim, no brain. Is what how the term goes. So these hyper aggressive, all aim, no brain people come in and they just stomp these pro league players who are used to playing a game of chess against a bulldozer. Um,
I like that.
yeah. That's what it is. Like
And then
it,
as you think about Sonics having come in and gotten used to that meta, then it makes more sense for them to be relegated by a hyper aggressive team that they haven't played against in a long time.
yeah. Um, and honestly, Two Face is gonna come in. They're gonna win a couple pro league matches, and everyone's gonna be cheering for him. And then after those wins, they're gonna start losing. That's how it's gonna go. I'm calling it right now.
What do you
If that
think their
happens,
record is? Given a 10-week season, what do you think they do?
I'm gonna say out of a 10-week season, what did they play one match a week, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say they go 4-6.
And
I'm
is
gonna
that
say they
enough?
win. I'm gonna say they win 2 or 3 handily right off the bat because nobody knows how to play them. And then once those teams start talking, everyone's gonna know how to play them, and then they're gonna start losing. And maybe they'll get 1 or 2 lucky wins towards the end when they start to pick up on things. But that's about it.
I just from their sheer preparation and the amount of respect that they've gotten for their win, I think I'll give them a little bit more. But I could see the 4-6 happening. Like if this is history just repeating itself, I could absolutely see that happening. But what I will say is if they can maintain this level of preparation and dedication and hunger, that when they see themselves going on that 2-3 game slide, that they'll course correct, that they'll actually make the adjustments because they've already proven that they're willing to commit to this Challenger League all the way through, preparing against the Pro League, preparing against Rogue. It's a team with such legacy to it. Like you can't ignore that. And here they are. They were just hungry for that. I can't imagine that hunger stops with Rogue, the bottom team, one of the bottom teams of Pro League. So I'm going to say that their fourth win is enough to keep them out of relegation next season.
I would hope so. And honestly, I really hope that they can adjust fire really quickly because their team. I don't know if you know. Do you know who their team analyst is?
I don't know.
So their team analyst is this guy named DNA. Uh, this guy is actually Nyx's father, who is the pro league player for Dark Zero.
You mentioned this.
Uh,
You mentioned this probably a couple weeks ago.
yeah. So I would hope, I would really hope that with their analyst being who he is, that they have some like actual insight into pro league strats. So if they don't adjust fire, then something's going wrong, and I would probably point my finger at him. Now I've had interactions with him. He's a super nice guy. He's a really great guy. I met him in Raleigh and all that stuff, and uh, I I I I'm I'm gonna say he's smart enough to tell the team on how to adjust fire. So let's hope for the best.
Yep, that definitely gives them a leg up that I could see that was missing from teams like Sonic, who were contemplating getting a coach, but thinking that they could carry all of the weight themselves. I mean, that's a learning opportunity, but for them, a very costly one. And here, Two Faced is coming in and making the most of things. So, uh, I actually really love relegation as much as it's as a system has been criticized from one game to another. I really enjoy relegation because it highlights the cost and the consequence, and you don't get a lot of that until more of these franchise leagues pop up. But for me, when I saw Rogue's Twitter account when they said GG's to Two Faced, they were also just like, well, we will see you in U.S. Nationals. We will see you at this event. We will see you in these events. They were already making plans forward. They weren't done with Rainbow Six. It's not just like, okay, drop the roster and we're just quitting. They've had success, like you said, since season one in a different roster and different settings and all that kind of stuff. But despite that, they have plans. They're not going anywhere, and that gives me a lot of optimism for seeing Rogue come back through relegation and come back into the pro league.
Yeah. Rogue will probably come back into pro league, but I'm calling it now. It's not going to be the same players.
Oh
And
no.
that's not because that Rogue is going to drop these players. Other teams are going to take these players because everybody knows that all these players on Rogue are all really good players. They're all star players. Um, I can guarantee you right now that teams are already looking at trying to grab these players from Rogue,
Oh yeah.
especially Slashug, Vertical, um, and some of the others. Like those guys are going to get snatched up really quickly.
Yeah.
I'm calling it right now.
And I mean, you got to think for teams like Space Station Gaming, who weren't relegated, but also didn't make it to the major, you got to think that they're in the middle of how do we fix our stuff? What needs to be fixed? And when you have resources on the table, like a roster from Rogue and a roster from Sonics, thinking like maybe one of these people have the answer for what you're looking for, or maybe you see a resource coming from Challenger League where it's like, okay, they may not be great right now, but we're willing to do the work to get them to be great, and maybe next season's not their winning season, but you go in there with that picture of what you want, you're going to see that success pay off in time as long as you stick to the plan.
Yeah, and you're gonna hear it first here. I'm making a prophecy here. TSM is gonna pick up either vertical or slash hug. Calling it now. In the next few weeks, maybe the next month or so, you're gonna see either slash hug or vertical announce that they're joining TSM.
What makes
I
you think
guarantee it.
that?
Well, TSM still needs a fifth.
Well,
TSM
yeah,
still doesn't have a fifth. The
not much of a
Gauchos still play.
prophecy.
T- uh, TSM, they're still playing with their coach, and a lot of people are forgetting that. Uh, Gotcha needs to go back to the coaching role, and TSM is about to sign one of them. I don't know. I'm one of those two. I guarantee it. Probably gonna be vertical. It's probably who it's gonna be.
I could see vertical being picked up. Slasha, I enjoyed his highlight matches. Like his highlight rounds when he stood out really loudly. Like it was just like,
Hmm.
damn, he is an impressive player to watch. But he seems to teeter back and forth. It seems to be getting to that consistency, and maybe it's his opponents being able to really find an angle that works more against him. But every time I watched him, it was just kind of like he was hot or off, and I really think that that consistency is just that part that is going to be worked on most. And I kind of like how I was mentioning a team picking up a resource from um, Sonics, being like, this person's not great right now, but we can build them to be great. I think finding a right roster with the right staff behind it, you could get Slash Hug the conditioning and the coaching to get to be consistent and to stand
Yeah.
out like Vertical does. Because Vertical is just another name that's top of the list week after week.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, if TSM picks another fragger like Vertical, TSM's gonna be a dangerous team next season.
I mean, they were a dangerous team this year, and they barely got edged out of going to the major. And so, like, you just find that weak link, you fix it up, and suddenly you're looking at like a major contention team. You're looking at someone who's going to stand out among the top of NA and challenge some of the EU counterparts.
Hmm.
Any last
Absolutely.
thoughts on the relegation matches? I mean, I was excited to see that all four of the matches between NA and EU all went the way of the challenger, which that just gets me excited to think of how good the gameplay is going to be next season. But I think you said 5 out of 6 of the total relegation matches ended up being in favor of the challenger, which is just an impressive feat. I've not heard of that many teams changing across multiple esports in a
There's gonna be
single relegation.
there's gonna be so much new blood in Pro League next season. It's gonna be really interesting, and uh, honestly, it'll be kind of fun to watch. So,
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for some new meta shifts. I mean, it was commentary on the stream last night of how players on Rogue help define certain metas and help define a bit of how North American R6 is played. So seeing that new blood come in and seeing what that does for international performance and even just show matches and scrimmages, like hearing how those things go, that's going to be an exciting time for change.
hmm, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think with that, we can probably jump over to Collegiate R6. We got into phase 2, so we know the first 32 teams who are in that bracketing, and these are primarily all the teams that went 4-0, but the top of the top who went 3-1. So these were people who had the toughest schedules in their phase 1, who ended up winning uh, 3 matches and only losing one. And for instance, I think we talked about it last stream, is that the team that went 3-1 at the top of 3-1 actually had a rating of opponent's win percentage being higher than the first place team Grand Canyon University's stack did. So that's just an interesting breakdown of how the teams bracketed out and who was going to be making it in. And so what we also learned last stream was that University of Houston and Texas A&M, they were going to be slotted in uh, at 0-0, which means they were actually able to be given the 15-16 seed, which is how they ended up
Hmm.
fighting
Yep.
Texas A&M, runners up from last season. They ended up playing Grand Canyon University, and you watched that match. How did that match go?
Um, it went how I expected it to go. Um, our team has, you know, we beat them last season, right? Um, I think it was not like just barely, but it wasn't an easy match. I think it was like like a 7-5 match or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but um, you know, but since then we have the A&M team has grown, tenfold times better than what we were last season. So I was kind of expecting, or I was expecting an A&M win. I wasn't really expecting how bad of a win it was going to be. So it went 7-1. I forgot the first map. Um, but the second map was Clubhouse. It was 7-2 on Clubhouse. So it went 7-1, 7-2. Um, and I don't think Grand Canyon performed as well as they should have, or they just didn't practice enough, or what. Um, I think they should have done at least a little bit better than how they performed. So I was a little disappointed to see them perform so poorly.
Yeah, and I mean this is also kind of where we're at with the history of these rosters. Like, okay, Cafe 7-2, Club 7-2. Thanks, Cool Buell.
Hmm.
But seeing that, I mean, Grand Canyon was still, they made it to national playoffs last season. They did really well. I think they were top 12, maybe top 8. Um, but for them, there was still a huge separation between when you break down the numbers. And I mean, we had University of Central Florida lose out to a team that was, I think they're complete opposite in terms of win rate and ratings in national playoffs. So I mean, numbers only go so far. But for Grand Canyon University to lose like that, I think that just shows really the spread of where things are at. And I mean, you left the Texas A&M roster, so we know at most only 4 of the 5 roster from Texas A&M was still there. Um, but we
It's
don't
only
know how.
three actually.
Oh, only 3. Okay, but
So
then we don't know how
last
much Grand Canyon changed.
yeah, that is also true. Yeah, last season we had myself, Jinro, Chief, Nyrock, and a guy named Luke, or his in-game name was like Hal 9000i, something like that, and he was a pretty insane Monty player, like top 500 NA on the ranked leaderboards, insane. But he actually, um, after the season, he kind of went his own way, and also we haven't really. I don't even know if he's still around or not at the school. We haven't heard from him in a long time. So and then I stepped away to focus on school and whatnot. But so uh, a guy named Silva, his real name's Bert, but Silva replaced me, and then Cool Buell, or his name's kind of it's kind of a joke, but it's American Dot Tam. Uh, he uh he took Luke's place on the team. So those are the two new A&M players. Both by which are really good players.
Are either of them actually better than you?
Um, yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, I'll say I'm not gonna be prideful here. Yeah, they're probably better than I am.
I mean, I was hoping for a little banter. I mean, Cool Buell's in chat right now, so I was hoping to maybe throw a little his way. But humble and honorable to the last minute, even in front of having an opportunity with a mic in your face. Like, way to go. But let's look down at some of the matchups that happened. That's not the right set. I'm good at this game. I swear I was prepared. That was not the right listing, but here we go. So Texas A&M 2-0 versus Grand Canyon University, University of Houston, last season's winners, take out FIU. There's another matchup that I wanted to call out: the CSULB Division One team, D1 team, versus Texas A&M's B team, Bravo team. Uh, I was hoping that this would give us a little bit of perspective on where the strengths of the rosters were and where how deep Texas A&M went. So this was an interesting measurement because CSULB was, again, I think they were top 8 last season, but they were the runners up to the previous season, the season prior. And so to see them consistently having that strong presence, and they went 4-0 during phase 1, and to see them hold a strong roster time after time after time, whoever is sustaining that right now, they may not, they probably still have like 2 more years in them, uh, just to keep CSULB there kind of at the top. San Jose, they keep impressing me every time they come up. Like they seem to win a lot. So I'm hoping to see some of their matches broadcast and follow along with them. Other familiar names, Simon Fraser, they're there. They unfortunately took a loss to UW Whitewater, who's a new addition to the season. Maryville, they didn't have a great showing last season, but here they are in the Premier League. So top 32 out of 212 teams apparently registered. Um, so Maryville showed up to Premier League, but then here they are being taken out by New Jersey Institute of Technology, which I can't remember where they were last season, but I know that they were another team from last season. So we have some interesting matchups here. Boston University is new as well. I couldn't track down any of their history. So for Longhorn Gaming, which, I mean, UT has always been a contender in whatever game you look at. So to see Boston coming out and showing up top 32 again and being able to take down a team like this, like
That one
it's a little bit of a statement.
that one was a little bit disappointing for me because UT obviously, towards the beginning of the season they said that they could beat us. Um, and we played them and we beat them. I mean, and they played well. They were a good team, but to see them come into into the Premier League and then all of a sudden just lose their first match is a little disappointing to me. So I really hope they can pick it up and back up their big talk. So we'll see how they continue on.
Yeah, and right now the standings don't mean a whole lot right now. It's win percentages, and right now everyone's only played one match at this point. So week 1 ends tomorrow, end of day tomorrow. Week 2 will kick off right on Monday. And so there's plenty to see here. I suggest tracking down any of these schools' social media and finding out how you can watch their matches if they're being broadcast, so you can check these out, because we're starting to see the creme de la creme of the collegiate scene, and every one of these teams, I guarantee you, watched those relegation matches. Every one of these teams absolutely watched how the last of Pro League wrapped up. So these are teams who are hungry, just like those Challenger League teams. And some of these teams are actually probably very much involved with those Challenger teams in the background, trying to figure out scrim partners, trying to figure out what they need to be doing, finding advice wherever they can find it. So um, knowing that some of these teams are really just that hardcore about it. I mean, your team was finding all the stream videos last year with 210 teams, and now for these top 32 to be like, okay, now we know who we're really up against for the next several weeks. They can figure out how they're going to dive deep into strategizing.
Hmm.
Up to this point, it's been work on fundamentals, understand the game, understand how you work as a team, but now they know who their enemies are. They know how they can hunt down data on them and start practicing for those other people, those other teams, not just trying to get to know themselves and execute as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. Make your VODs private.
Good repeat conversation from last week. Make sure you are keeping your thoughts private. Of course, unless you're esports
Cool,
program.
and then
Oh,
you're
go ahead.
watching. Make your VODs private. All of you, because there were multiple of you that streamed that last match. Make them private. All of the other teams that are listening to, make them private, or don't. That's cool too.
I mean, they could be super honorable and just be like, Yeah, it's like you'll be in chat right now. Just let them see. We have nothing to hide. We will beat you on your own ground. Like, well,
I,
I'm excited to hear that they're holding strats. I mean, tick mark for actually being a competitive team. Check. But yeah, I mean, you could be super honorable and just be like, we have nothing to hide. We are just better than you, and be that egotistical team that no one really likes in the first place. Or you can hide your strats and hide your
all
VODs.
all right, Fabian. All right. I strats all you want to.
All right. So, I mean, out of these teams, like we're seeing all the teams here on the round one breakdown, and I mean, I called out wanting to see another game from Maryville just to see how they stack up this year. Clearly, they're a lot better. I think right now, for a testament of strength, I just want to see Maryville versus San Jose. I need to get a better feel on these two teams. The Texas A&M Bravo versus CSULB, I think, gives me a decent measurement because we have a B team and an A team, and the B team lost. I mean, I don't know if it was like a 8-7 kind of thing or a 7-5 kind of thing, or a 7-2 kind of thing, just like how you all did to Grand Canyon. But there is still some measurement that can be done there. So I think I want to get more of a feel on Maryville and San Jose.
Yeah, that'll be a good match. I agree.
And to be, I mean, just to be completely out there with everyone who's going to listen to the podcast, we don't know who round two is going to be up against. We don't know any of the matchups at this point since week one is still going. But at some point, I have to imagine that some of these matchups are going to happen. So um, I guess the only other one that I want to see is another University of Houston Texas A&M.
I think everybody wants to see that, including our own team. So, uh, I think Tamu will win. I don't think Houston's gonna win a second time. Calling it now.
On it now. There you go. You want to call the map breakdown 0-2, 2-1?
I think it'll be 0-2. Or 0-2 in our favor. I think we'll win. We will win 2-0.
Is it going to be 7-2, 7-2 kind of breakdown, or is it going to be close?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you the round breakdown, but I'll tell you that we'll win both maps.
Okay. I mean, I can absolutely get behind it. I mean, clearly a very talented roster, and here you are given the inside info that thinking that the team's even stronger since last season. So, I mean, there's
I hate to sound biased on air, but I just have full confidence because I've seen firsthand their capabilities. So
yeah. Were there any other teams that you're hoping to get a feel on, or a matchup that you're hoping to see?
um honestly, I want to see I want to see Long Beach play Tamu again. I think Long Beach just want a I think Long Beach wants some revenge against us.
That's right. You
Because
guys have some storied history with them as well.
yeah, Long Beach beat us pretty handedly. Like like it wasn't even a chance against us. The inaugural CR6 season, they just wiped the floor with us. But then the next season, CR6, we wiped the floor with them. So I think they're wanting some payback. So I'm curious as to how that match will go.
I'm looking forward to it because I believe what. So in season one, I believe it was CSULB beat you, and then they went on to be runners up. And then last season, you beat the team that they lost to, who then had the history from the season prior. So like it's funny between you, CSULB, and who was the other first place team from
From season one.
yeah.
Um, It was who was it was UCF. It was Central Florida versus San Diego, I believe. Right?
That's right. Yeah. So
Yeah, and then San
so
Diego won.
every each of those teams who have been in like that top four position,
Tuneless. What's
they
your favorite? What's your favorite R6 operator? Did I not mute myself?
no, they didn't.
Oh, sorry. That's so
It's all
unfortunate.
good.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. Um,
What's your favorite
but
R6 operator?
there's definitely a storied
Um,
history between. You're still not muted.
why is not? All right, there you go.
There you
Continue.
go. There is a history between a lot of the top four teams from each of the seasons, and there's already these decided relationships, and we're hearing about Texas A&M versus CSULB. We're talking Houston as well. As we get onto Central Florida or any of the other teams that are still around, like there's still opportunity for Texas A&M to play San Diego in the playoffs when we get the top 32 from the main division. And so there's going to be a lot more of this bad blood between teams, and we're looking at specific R6 and CR6 related rivalries, which is sweet to be a part of that history and just being able to remember some of that and be able to talk towards it. So we're going to start developing histories on these programs and see who who is really creating those dynasties and those stories and that a little bit of legacy or infamy even. Like for all we know, Texas A&M is just going to go down as that cocky team who's just like, oh yeah, we're going to call out everyone and no big deal. It's just going to happen and be the ones to step up and actually be that good.
Um, but yeah, sorry, I was chatting with my chat here.
How dare
Um,
you? How dare you have people in your chat?
sorry. But yeah. I think I totally had something to say, and I totally blanked. Who was it? Uh, one team that I don't see in here that I am surprised I don't see in here is UCCS. Unless I'm not seeing them.
Yeah, I didn't see them. Let's
Um,
see if they're somewhere else in the standings.
I don't see Colorado Springs, and they were actually a good team. So I don't. I'm actually really surprised to see them not in the Premier League.
They may not have had a team. I mean, if anyone, if
They do. I think
do they?
they
Okay,
definitely still do.
they
Cause
we have Boulder.
I,
We don't have Colorado Springs from what I've seen.
yeah, and also the Colorado Boulder. I don't know if this black team is that their A team? Is that like their varsity team? I'm
That's
not
my
sure.
assumption. That's my assumption. Yeah,
Well, okay.
UCCS Gold. So UCCS has a couple teams at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're seed number 4 in the open division or in the main. Was this main?
Hey, do we know if any other teams have two teams like in the Premier League besides like A&M? Are
I
we
don't.
the
I
only
think you're the only
team
ones.
in Premier League that has both teams in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think you're the only ones who do.
That's pretty. It's gotta say something.
Yeah, and which is why I was glad to have that measurement of being able to say, okay, how does CSULB stack up to your B team? We can we can start getting power rankings between the schools, just off of that one data point, and start getting some more interesting stacking to see where we can start projecting where teams are going to fall out to. But yeah, I'm not seeing any other. Actually, maybe. Yeah, Bronco Esports. and maybe that's Colorado Springs. Bronco Esports green and gold. They played Akron and UF.
Uh, yeah, yeah. Um, black. Yeah, I don't see any other teams.
Yeah, I think that might be the Colorado Springs team.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Or maybe they're just the Denver team. I don't know.
I don't think it's a Denver team because Denver's is a different city than Colorado Springs.
Oh yeah, okay, so you see CS, I see in the main division.
Yeah. Oh, Cool Bill is saying that we should do power ranking.
I'm down. I would you guys present your power rankings. We'll talk it through next time. How about that?
Yeah, we can definitely do some power rankings for next week's podcast. So
Great. Well, we've certainly run long. We had a lot to talk about when we actually got into it, and it felt really good to be able to talk like this. This is kind of the R6 and CR6 and just fan kind of nuts conversation I've been hoping to get into. So this is exciting to be a part of, and thank you for taking the time to come out and do this. I know the schedule's been a little bit wonky, and getting used to this and getting your stream set up to kind of support this and make it stronger. So I appreciate your time and your effort that you've put into this. And I mean, even the connectivity, seeing your guys in stream and in chat, that's awesome to feel and see and be a part of the CR6 community. So thanks for doing all this and helping out. And well, I don't have much else to say other than tune in for your collegiate matches as they're broadcast and support CR6.
yeah, if there are any other teams besides my team watching, if no one's casting your match, or like on air casting your match, if you want to record your match and then send your VODs to us so we can watch them, so we can have something to talk about. We can talk about your team and how they performed on air. Feel free to do so. Um, my email, you can send me my email or Joe's email. My email is in my bio of my Twitter, so you just send them over there. And I believe your email is also in your Twitter bio, correct?
Actually, I don't think it is, but you can always hit me up at warlockrecall@gmail.com. Or the best place to get a hold of me is just DM me on Twitter at warlockrecall. And that's a really easy
Mhm.
place. I live in Twitter when I'm commuting to and from work, so there you go. Also, if you just have a question or a comment or any sort of feedback for the show, by all means, leave a message, and I'll bring you in as a member of the podcast. And so, anchor.fm/ check your six/ message and record your message there. You can also do it on the app, the anchor.fm app, and then I can pull in your voicemail and we can talk about it on air and start involving more of the community. So let us know how we can help improve your CR6 and even Pro League experience. Anyways, that's
Yeah,
all I
absolutely.
got.
I think that'd be pretty cool if any of the premier teams, probably preferably the team captains, want to come on air and tell us a little bit about your team and how you think you're gonna do over the next few weeks. Let us know. We can definitely bring you on as a guest so you can talk about your team. I think that'd be pretty fun.
Absolutely. And one thing I did last season was get in contact with a team and see if they wanted to do kind of a short interview and then just stream some matches together, get to know the team and get to know, just have a good time and have a goof off stream. It could be a good way to blow off some steam, break after a rough day of practice or scrims, but that's something that I think goes that next step of getting to know all these teams because there's this huge community and highlighting these teams who are taking it so seriously. And as part of that community, I think would be extremely beneficial to helping out the CR6 scene.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks again for your time. Thanks to everyone in chat. I appreciate the follow and the conversation. It's been great, as I said. So until next week, probably, hopefully back to Thursday. Hopefully our schedules kind of align back up again. But we will have to see how week 2 goes, and as we get ready for the Pro League finals next weekend. So soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, take it easy.
All right.
And that's it for the stream and the casts. This will probably go out Monday morning, and so it won't be outdated by much. So appreciate everyone coming out again, and I will catch you all later.